Welcome back to the newest edition of My Case Monday, where we're learning section by section, page by page, menu by menu, the ins and outs of 8 a.m. My Case Accounting. And so today I've logged into my demo file and I'm going to go down to the accounting section. So go down to the left menu, bump out accounting. We're on the bills and expenses section. Last week we covered bills. Today we're going to cover client expenses. Now, something that I don't think I mentioned in the bills tab is this bills is set up that you can queue up for payment any invoice you have. So any invoice you've received, you can queue it up in here. However, from this page, you cannot tie back a client expense to a case, which means you have to go in and enter it a second time under client expenses. So if I am the accountant in charge of paying the bills for the firm, I would take whether it's a physical wire basket inbox or digital electronic inbox, my email inbox, that is where I am notified that items need to be paid by the firm. I am sorting those into two piles. I'm going to sort one pile of firm expenses, general overhead, that is not going to be billed back to clients. And those are the things I'm talking, rent, copier lease, those things. Because if you remember, within the bills section, we did not have the ability, there we're only tracking, we have something we want to pay. We did not have an option to link it back to a case. Under client expenses, this is going to be my second pile. Anything that is related to a case, whether I'm billing it back to a client or not, I still want to capture that information. So as a bookkeeper, I'm probably grumbling, why am I doing all this extra data entry? But if I put my CFO hat on, I want to know that because I want to know if I'm pricing things, whether I bill back money to a client or not. I still want everything I can track back to a client that I can trace to a case. I want to be able to get that captured somehow so that I can make better decisions on pricing, whether I'm pricing hourly or a flat fee, but also it will help with sales. So those sales conversations where somebody comes in and says, how much does this cost? It's not just $400 an hour. It's $400 an hour plus, for this type of case, there's typically $500 spent in filing fees and $2,000 spent in expert witness fees. And so if I'm tracking all of that, I can always go back and analyze and figure that out. So I can update it as time goes on and prices change. So once I've done my two piles of firm expenses, completely general overheads, got to pay whether we have a case or not, I'm going to enter those into the bills section. And then anything that I will or potentially bill back to a client is going to be entered in this client expenses. So first off, when you get to this page, like we've seen on other sections of My Case, this is a dashboard that's just going to give you a list. Now, my list is down. I do the 100 rows per page. You can make it shorter if you want. It's whatever your preference is on that. And then again, we always have our options here to increase our text size or decrease our text size. Within here, now this, you have the ability, so you can either view, and I wish there were filters on this page. This is one of the few pages that there are no filters. It would be nice in here to have a filter on here. I could see where I'd want to know of, a filter by date, by type of activity, by invoiced, by payment status, by case. I could see being able to want to do that. I can get to that information other ways, but this stuff's on this page, so it'd be nice to have those filters here already on the page. But this add client expense functions exactly the same if you're in cases and you open your case and you go into time and billing under this expense section and you want to add an expense. And you're saying, Kelly, this is kind of crazy. Why would we want two different areas? The reason is, this is what we're on now is on your case management side. What I'm talking about is on the MyCase Accounting side. The difference is that it's very possible. I have this very often where with MyCase Accounting, if the firm pays for one subscription to MyCase Accounting, that includes a firm user plus one bookkeeper or accountant. When that person logs in, that does not give the bookkeeper or an accountant access to the case management system. So every firm has a different relationship because it depends. Part of it depends on whether your bookkeeper is an in-house person who has other responsibilities, or if they're an external person and you very narrowly scoped what they do for you. And then if they don't need the case management, why would you pay for it? So having this ability in here within MyCase Accounting makes it easier, because if your bookkeeper or accountant is paying your bills, they have the opportunity where they can queue up the information to be available to be billed on the next bill, because the person who does the billing might be a different person. So that's why this exists, as it's a duplicate function, but there's a split within MyCase. There's the MyCase case management, and then there's MyCase Accounting as an add-on. So they function the same. So the rest of what I'm going to talk about, if you are used to entering client expenses through the case on the case management side, then you're going to be like, yeah, duh, I already knew this. And that's fine. But I'm just trying to explain how this works on the MyCase Accounting side. Let's just say we have a client expense, and we're going to go in here, and I have my case. So I'm going to go ahead and add that. It defaults to the current user logged in. It gives you the ability to change it. I'm not sure why you would, but so I just kind of tam past that one. Activity type, now you've got a screenable or it's searchable. So we're just going to say it's a filing fee. Nicely, you have off to the right here, if you need to add a new activity because it's not listed in there, you have that ability to add a new activity type. And then you can decide whether this is a hard cost or soft cost. Now, I think most attorneys I talk to understand this, but I'm not sure if everybody does. And I'm also not sure if there's bookkeepers or accountants that are listening to this. So if this is new to you, the difference between a hard cost and a soft cost. So hard costs are expenses that you're incurring on a client's behalf that the firm is going to pay the vendor directly. Examples of this would be you need to pay a witness fee or a filing fee, or get medical records from one of the providers that treated your client. So those are hard costs. You have an invoice and you're going to pay a vendor directly for a very specific invoice. Okay, so hard cost, it's known. Okay, the soft costs are things that you want to bill to your client, but you can't directly create an invoice. Like there's not an invoice for this. And examples would be mileage. So you have to drive to depot, to court. So mileage. And then copies. Copies is a big one. Actually, probably less as time goes on, but because we're moving more to a digital world. But copies, postage, because you load up the postage meter, you put $100 on the postage meter, and then that cost has already been paid, but you want to be able to bill back postage for larger items, things that cost $5 or whatever. Legal research costs. So those kind of things are things that you're paying for, but you don't necessarily have a specific invoice or a receipt to prove it. It's usually a handwritten log of what happened and how, what was creating that expense for this case. So hopefully that makes sense with this, hard cost, soft cost. So this is a filing fee. It's a hard cost. I can tie it right back to a specific case. By default, this expense is billable. This is checked yes. Now, personally, as a CFO, I think every expense needs to be billed back to the clients. But as someone who I've owned my accounting firm for 20 years, and I will tell you that there are times where it's not worth billing a certain expense. And I really can't put into words when that happens. It's one of those things that when you see it, you know it, that you end up with more goodwill if you don't bill it. But it's nice to be able to track it because it helps you make better decisions in the future. So by default, this is on, but if you want to track it and not bill it back to a client, just turn it off. Okay. And it's just a click to slide the button back and forth. Now you have a box for a description, and it even reminds you this description will appear on invoices. So this is nice because I can do counter claim filed on 11/10/25. Now, if I just save this, it will make this now available as an expense to be billed back to clients. But it is not going to post in the firm's ledger. And at this point, I have a filing fee and I have to create a check to be able to pay that filing. Imagine this is old school and we're going to take it to the court and file it in person. So in here, it's going to, so I feel like this is clunky how it's worded because this expense has been paid. And really, if you check it, it's going to give you the ability to pay it. The expense has been paid. Check that box if this is true, if you're trying to pay something that you already paid with a credit card. But we don't have a payment account, like we don't have a credit card in this demo file, and that's why that was not. So there's no option in here for a credit card. But so I'm going to check the box that this has been paid, even though that's a lie. I want to pay it out of my operating account. Now you have the ability to add, there's custom fields. Now this demo file, at some point over time, people have added these custom fields. Personally, they mean nothing to me just because this is a demo file. But if this is my firm and there's something I want to track, there's your custom fields that you can fill those out. If I want to add a receipt, which right now I haven't paid it, so I don't have a receipt. But if I do, you would just click receipt, and now it gives you the ability. You can drag a file here and drop it, or you can click to open up a file window to be able to find your file. You can put a description of the receipt here. You can add multiple receipts. I come in here and say the cost is $155. Now you might say, that's a little weird that there's a quantity because it's a filing, so it's one. But where this comes handy is mileage or copies, because you can come in here and you can say the cost for every black and white copy is 10 cents. So you can put in here 10 cents, but then put in the quantity 100. And when you go to post this, it'll do that math for you. So this is a filing fee. I have one filing fee for $155. And this is the magical part. Print the check. I am going to make the check payable to Cook County Court because so this vendor as a vendor does not have an address already pre-assigned or set up. So no address showed up. But honestly, if we're going to attach the check to a filing, we're taking it in person. We don't need an address. We have the check date, check number, and then we can either create the expense now and print the check now, or we can save this and print for later. So I'm going to print, save and print later. Whoops. Calls me out for not adding a check date. So save and print later. And then this is going to queue up to be available to print when I go to print checks. Now, and then when that prints, it's going to post to my general ledger, to the operating account, because that's what I told it to do. So that added, when I saved it, it adds it in here. Now it's telling me here on my, my client expense dashboard, this is uninvoiced. So it's available to be billed back to a client. And now it marks the status as paid because it's been saved and the check is queued up to print. So this kind of hinges on the fact that it's trusting that you are going to print that check. Now, if you want to check how this works, so we go into the case and it'll take you directly into the expenses, and here it is. So now we know, and then it's, it's open for an invoice status, meaning it has not yet been billed. So it's billable. It's in my billable queue, my bucket. So those are the things that we can do within the MyCase accounting, within bills and expenses, and then specifically the client expenses. So let me know what you think. If you have any questions, let me know. And come back next week where we're going to talk about